Well, hi you guys, welcome back to the Kneady Homesteader channel, and this morning we are going to make a new type of cinnamon twist bread. I know I've made this video before. I will try to leave it in a card up above. If I can't, I'll leave the link down below. I'll also leave it at the very end of this video so you can click on that video and watch it. It's an older video. I think I did it 3 or 4 years ago now, but I've been tweaking the dough. And I just wanted the dough to be softer, more tender, sweeter, more of a dessert bread than of a standard like soft white bread. So I've been playing around in my kitchen and I really love how this bread turned out. In fact, I'm going to bring you over here to my butcher block here, and I'll show you what's left of this bread that I made the day before yesterday, and it is beautiful. My family has been toasting it up, putting butter, Kerrygold butter on it, sprinkling it with some cinnamon sugar. This, I wanted to get this video out before the holidays because I think this bread would not only be perfect just as cinnamon toast, but you could turn this into French toast. You could also cube this up and make almost like a French toast casserole with it. I know I did that one year for a video. I'll try to find the link to that video and put it in a card or put it down below for you guys. And it was a Pioneer Woman recipe. And I have used it many, many times, especially when all of my older children come up to visit and they spend the weekend. It just makes cooking for a crowd much easier. But this is an absolutely beautiful bread, and it would make the perfect gift. In fact, today, now with you, I'm only going to make 1 loaf, but when I shut off this camera, I'm going to go ahead and make 4 loaves and give it out to my family tomorrow when we meet up for Matt's birthday memorial dinner. So, with that, let's get back to the mixer and let's make this bread together. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put in 1 tablespoon of instant yeast. Okay, to that yeast, we're going to go ahead and we're going to add a 1/2 cup of sugar. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we are going to take 5 tablespoons of butter, and I'm just going to put this in my microwave for about 10-15 seconds just to soften it. So once that's softened, we're going to use that in the recipe, and then the 3 tablespoons that remains, we're just going to put off to the side because we're going to use that once our bread is done baking. Now, unlike the other recipe that I have, we are going to, instead of using water, we're going to use milk. So we're going to go with 1.5 cups of milk, and we are going to warm this to 110 degrees, roughly. If it's, you know, you want to wake up your yeast between 110 and 115. I've never used it higher than that, and we don't want to kill our yeast. So between 110 and 115. So when it comes out of the microwave, I'm just going to use the knife that I used to cut the butter. And then I'm going to take my thermometer. If you make bread often, you should really invest in a thermometer, especially if you make sourdough. So that temperature is 80. So I know this has to go in for just a little bit more. You can do this on the stove top. So mine is 113.3. And so we're going to go ahead and add this to my mixing bowl. So here we go. Pour that in, and then we'll go ahead and we will add the butter. Okay, and then we're going to need an egg, so I'm just going to crack my egg there. Make sure. We are going to go ahead and we're going to start layering our flour first. So, I'm going to use bread flour, but I have tried this with both bread flour and all-purpose flour, so either one will work. You'll just get a little bit of a nicer rise with bread flour. And we're going to start with 4 cups, and then if we need to add a little bit more, we can add a little bit more. I'm going to start with 4 cups. There's 2. There's 3. And 4. And then on top of that flour is where I'm going to start layering things like my egg. So 1 egg to this. I am also going to be adding, I've got some fresh local honey, and I'm going to be adding 2 tablespoons of honey to this. Okay, I will also be adding 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. You can use something like a apple pie filling if you wanted to as well, if you wanted a little nutmeg in there. But we're just going to stick with cinnamon. We're going to keep it easy. We're also going to be adding 1 teaspoon of sea salt. And we will be adding 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Now for me, it's going to be my homemade bourbon vanilla. Okay, and that's it. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to turn this on a speed 2, and we're going to let this come together. And if it needs a little bit more flour, we'll add a little bit more flour. I will show a bit of this process, even though I know it's loud and annoying to some people, but I know this is the part that most people struggle with on either making their dough too wet or too dry. So, one that kind of falls flat for you, or one that ends up being really tough. So we're just going to watch this. This is the fun part. Watching it all come together. And watching it pull away from the sides as it starts to kind of come together. Okay, so as I'm watching it, I can tell it's just going to need just a little bit. You see how it's kind of pulling off to the off the sides? But around the dough hook, it's just a little wet. So I'm just going to sprinkle my flour a little bit in the center where the dough is, or the hook is, just to kind of help bring that together. It's looking really, really good. And it's looking good because I can see the bottom is not sticking. It's starting to pull away from the sides of my bowl. And then if I'm watching it, if I stop it, and you can feel it, you see how it sticks here? You don't want that. That's too soft. So all you have to do is just sprinkle a little bit, just little bits, like a tablespoon at a time. A little sticky is fine as long as it's not sticking to your fingers. If it's sticking to your fingers and comes off, it's too wet. And again, the temperature of your kitchen, the humidity in your kitchen, the flour itself, how fresh it is or how dry it is, it's all factors. So every time you make a loaf of bread, it's going to be different. Which is part of the fun for me, but I know for a lot of people it's stressful. So I'm just adding little bits at a time, just to sprinkle kind of on the top of that dough ball as it's coming together. And I know I mentioned this in another video, but my flour is fresh. So now we're starting to see it pull away. So I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit more. Got another teaspoon there. And I'm seeing it lift from the bottom. I'm seeing it really pull from the sides. I just need another little sprinkle. You can always add more. You can never take away. Well, you can try to add liquid, but it just does not work out well. So, little bits at a time. Even if you feel like you're standing here for 10-15 minutes, when you're starting to learn how to make bread, you might very well stand there that long. But it's okay. I'm just sprinkling about a teaspoon at a time. And I'm watching my dough becoming smooth. Instead of like wrinkly and wet looking, it's becoming smooth. Now it's still going to pull because it's going to need to knead for 5 to 7 minutes. But once you get the consistency right, you can sit here in the bowl and just knead away, and it will just get softer. See, I'm still seeing a little sticking on the bottom, so I'm going to just sprinkle a little bit more in. And I think that's going to be it. Really starting to look good now. Alright, with that, I'm going to set my timer for 5 minutes. If you have a professional 600, something lower than a ProLine 7, set it for 7 minutes. 5 to 7 minutes is perfect. And I'll see you back when this is all made. It's been 5 minutes, so we're going to shut that off. We're going to put down the bowl. We'll get my hook off of here, and we'll go over to the cutting board. Okay, I say cutting board because that's probably what you'll have, or a butcher block if you have that, whichever. All right, let me grab my scraper here, and let's take the dough hook off and then scrape this out of the bowl. If you have any pieces, get that out. Okay, and so you can see inside my bowl and how nice and clean that is. And then let's grab some oil. I use organic olive oil, and we're just going to drizzle that in. And then with our dough over here, we're just going to knead it by hand a little bit, smooth it out, let it come together. And this is a much sweeter dough, but it's also so much softer and more tender. And for this recipe, I just think it's perfect. Oh, and I love seeing all the flakes of the vanilla bean, the spots of vanilla bean and cinnamon in it. Oh, it's so pretty. It's so pretty. Okay, we're gonna dip it upside down, spin it, flip it, and then these little pieces were from my bowl. And then we're gonna put a damp towel over it. Let me grab one. I keep some towels in my bread basket that I only use. Okay, so it is a flour sack towel that I rinse under hot water. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in my oven with the oven light on for an hour to rise. If you have a proof setting on your oven like I do, go ahead and use that. But if you don't, no worries, just turn your oven light on. It will keep this at the perfect temperature it needs to rise really well for you, instead of keeping it out in your kitchen where there could be a draft or anything else. So, all right, in this oven it goes. We'll let it rise for an hour, and then I'll bring you back. So now this bread has risen. It took 70 minutes. It is a very sweet dough though, so it might take a little longer. Just wait until you see that it doubles in size, okay? And then we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna deflate this. And then get it out on our board. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of oil, just put a couple little drizzle on my hand, and then I'm just going to oil up my rolling pin. Some people like to use flour, but I have found that if I use oil, it just works a lot better. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll this out into a rectangle. Here's my Pullman pan. It is a 9 by 13. Okay. And so it doesn't have to be a perfect shape. Okay, but I just like to make it into a rectangle the best that I can, so I can kind of size up my pan a little bit. Now I'm using a Pullman pan that does not need to be treated. It is non-stick. Okay, I'll leave a link to that pan down below. So now when you've got your dough rolled out, the trick to this particular bread, unlike cinnamon rolls or cinnamon swirl bread, we are turning this bread we're gonna cut it, but we're gonna kind of turn it inside out to make that twist look. So if you did this with brown sugar, like you would say cinnamon rolls, or like I said, a cinnamon sugar bread, a cinnamon roll bread, what will happen is all that sugar will either fall out, it'll just make a huge mess, or it'll turn rock hard and it'll turn into candy. And we don't want that. So we want our bread to be as soft as possible. So the trick to this is we're not going to use brown sugar. We are going to use powdered sugar. Okay. So I'm going to use my little ball that I use for flour and for sugar. But if you have something like this, I used to have a little smaller one. I don't know what happened to it, but you could use something like this as well. You just want something that you can go ahead and just lightly apply your powdered sugar. Now, you want to stay away from the edges because that's how we're going to seal this up. Okay. And so you don't want them all sticky, otherwise you won't really get a good seal. But you're going to put the powdered sugar on enough to where you can't see the dough through it. Okay, and once you've got your powdered sugar on, we are going to go ahead and we're going to use some cinnamon. And we're just going to sprinkle that right on top of our powdered sugar. And I do a nice layer, not so that all the white is gone, but most of it is. Again, just kind of avoiding the edges a little bit. Okay, and then once that is done, now we're going to spray it with water. Okay, I posted about this water bottle. It is so good, and I was so sick of buying plastic ones that kept either breaking or melting in my in my greenhouse when I was trying to seed start. So I'll leave a link for this water bottle down below. Somebody who doesn't make bread asked me, what do you use a water bottle for? Well, this is what you use it for. So here we go. We're going to lightly spray. You don't want to get it soaking wet, but you just want to lightly spray that cinnamon and powdered sugar, because what that does is it sets it into the bread a little bit, into the dough, so that it'll make it easier when we go ahead and twist this. So now that you've done that, we're going to go ahead and roll this up, okay? So we want a nice tight roll. And then always pull this edges up, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to pinch the seam, and then when we get to the edge, just like I do all my other breads, we're going to take the edge, we're going to kind of poke it and kind of pinch up the seam. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Okay, and then I like to roll it like this and press it down, press that seam down. Get this bread nice and even so you don't have any weird thickness in it. okay? And now, flip that over, make sure your seam looks good. If you've got to pinch it, go ahead and pinch it again, just to make sure that your seam is nice and pretty. And press it down. And then we're going to take, well, I would normally use my bench knife. If you have a bench knife, use that. But for the sake of anyone who wants to make this for Christmas and you don't have a bench knife and you're new to bread, we're just going to use, I'm going to use a serrated knife, okay? So this is where the fun happens. So let me make sure you can see all of that, okay? So what we're going to do with this now is we're going to cut it right down the center. Right down the center. Make sure you get it all the way through, because with a knife it's a little bit harder. So if you're going to make bread, get yourself a bench knife. It will make things easier for you. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to kind of open up the spread, and on the ends we're going to pinch it together. Okay, and then from there, you want to be careful because this is where all the ribbon looks comes from. From there, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start twisting this. So I'm going to take one and I'm going to twist it over. I'm going to take this one underneath and I'm going to twist it over. And then I'm going to twist it one more time. And then I'm going to just bring the end together. Okay. And that is it. But doesn't that look fancy? And you see, it's not that hard. You just kind of have to, let's see, I'll use a spatula because now if you had a bench knife, this is where you would use your bench knife to help you lift it, okay? So I use a little bit of help because my hands, you know, they're injured. So we're going to get it in the bread pan. And then we're going to just kind of make sure our ends are together. Make sure this end is together. And this is where you can kind of adjust it if you need. Okay. And that looks beautiful. You see that? All right, now I'm going to cover this again with my wet flour sack towel. I'm going to put it back in the oven to rise for another hour to 60 to 70 minutes. The last, did I mention that? It took about 70 minutes the last time to double in size. So I'm still going to use my oven light. I'm going to be using my proofer in my oven, the proof option. But we're going to give this probably another hour and then I'll come back and we'll bake it. So there's our bread and it's risen beautifully. And so now before we bake it, we're going to preheat our oven to 375. And then what we're going to do is we're going to top this with milk. I'm going to brush it with milk, okay? So that it gets this nice, soft, pretty top on it. Alright, so I just have a little dish here with just a little bit of milk, a couple tablespoons. And what I do first is I brush it on the dough first that doesn't have a lot of the cinnamon on it. And then I'll go ahead and brush a bit on, just dab it on the parts that have the cinnamon and powdered sugar. Okay, and then once you get all the milk on, as soon as your oven is ready to go, you're gonna go ahead and put this in the oven for 40 minutes to bake. And when it's all done, I'll bring you back and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so our timer has gone off. I'm gonna bring out our bread. Oh, it's just so beautiful. Now, it is not burnt. I know the camera kind of makes it. Yeah, I made a new one. It is brown because that's where the cinnamon is, okay? So there it is. Hold on, let me get my gloves off here. And then aim you up a little bit so you can see it. Now, what I want to do is get it out of this pan, okay? Sometimes, depending on the milk, hopefully, hopefully you can see that. Okay, so depending on the milk, sometimes it can make it stick in the pan a little bit. There we go. All right, let me flip this over. Hotty, hotty, hot, 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 hot. All right, let me get the pan off to the side here to cool of the tripod so that you can have a better look. There's my dog, Kitty Lee. Jennifer, there you are. If you're watching this, Jennifer, there's Kitty Lee. He brought me his little octopus friend because he likes to play tug of war. So there it is, you guys. There's the bread. Now, what I want to do is I want to get some butter on here. So I'm going to go ahead and melt some butter. I have some right over here in a little tiny mason jar. So I'm going to put that in the microwave real quick and I'll grab a brush. There we go. I put it on a cutting board so that you guys can see it just a bit better. I'm going to grab just a little silicone brush and I've got my melted butter here. And by putting it on the board too, I can spin it a little easier. So now I'm just going to brush this bread with melted butter. Oh, it's so pretty. Now, as this cools, you can add a drizzle to this, okay? And so, a powdered sugar drizzle. I'm going to just spin this around so you guys can see this. And that would be 2 cups of powdered sugar. And then, I just add a tablespoon of milk. You can use water too, but I like it better with milk. And then mix. You're going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla and then 1 tablespoon of milk or water, and then keep adding another teaspoon or so as you keep mixing it until you get it to the consistency of the icing that you're looking for. Yes, you can put food coloring in it if you want. You can put different flavoring in it if you wanted to flavor it. That's just a basic recipe for powdered sugar icing. It's totally up to you. And this is beautiful. So I would not drizzle it until it's cool enough not to melt the icing. So this is going to be given as a gift. This particular bread right here is going to my aunt tomorrow. So I'm going to let this cool, and then I'm going to add the drizzle over it just so you can see what it looks like, and then we'll gift it to her with some drizzle on it. She will not be mad about it. So there we have it. You can end it here. You don't have to put the drizzle on. For my family, I don't. I leave it off because they like to toast this bread. And there, that's what it looks like. And then I will show you really quickly what this bread looks like on the inside. Because I have a loaf here that I'm actually, Mason's sitting at the table waiting for a slice of cinnamon bread. So here is a loaf that I baked. And there you go. And that's the inside. So you will get bits of swirl, but for the most part, most of the swirl is on the outside. But with the cinnamon, with this much sugar in this bread and cinnamon, you get the flavoring all through the bread. It's beautiful. And then, let me see. I'm going to put it down here. Let me move this one out of the way. Grab. And I will, since I've got a slice for Mason, you guys, so you can see what it looks like. And there you have it. And so that is going to go right into my toaster. Let me get that cooking for him. And then I will drizzle that with icing for him when it comes out of the toaster. Sometimes when you add icing to the bread and then you toast it, it gets all melted and gets in your toaster, and I'm not a fan of that. So I'm going to put the rest of this back in the bag, and then I will show you the icing here. This is the icing. And again, you can make it as thick or as runny as you want. And I guess I could drizzle some now. I'll drizzle some right here. Okay, can you guys see that? There we go. All right. There, how's that? Now this bread, because it's so high and it's not, even though it was made in the Pullman pan, it did not have the lid. So this will go into one of the bigger bread bags that I use, that I actually use for my rolls. I will leave a link. Here you go, Kitty. I will leave a link for that, those bags down below. But they fit a big size loaf of bread like this beautifully. So, there you go. There you have it. Cinnamon twist bread, just in time for Christmas. If you guys give this a try, let me know what you think. Come back, post pictures. I know you can't post pictures here on YouTube, but you can go over to Instagram and tag me, or you can post right over there on Facebook, on my Facebook page, and let me see your cinnamon twist bread. Isn't that beautiful? What do you think, Mason?
It looks delicious.
It's beautiful, right? Something special for the holidays. You know, this isn't something that you're going to make, you know, every other day and eat, but for the holidays, it's really pretty. And if you're looking for a hostess gift, and if money is tight, which money is tight for most of us this year, gifting a loaf of bread is so thoughtful. It doesn't cost that much money. You know, you can make something like this for, you know, well, if you buy in bulk like me, maybe $5. So, but it doesn't cost you much, and it's a lot of love goes into this. It pours through your spirit and out your hands. So, and this isn't something that most people know how to do for themselves. So gift them a loaf of bread and a lot of love, and they will appreciate it. So All right, guys, I will be seeing you soon. Let me know if you make this. And yeah, love you. God bless.